We're fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to connect.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Little Thursday night edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. Get in that chat. Drop your questions because today we have yet again another mailbag episode of the pod. So if you listen about, I think it was 2 Thursdays ago, we went mailbag. It was a little bit of a quieter time on the calendar. Said, screw it. Let's just answer some of your questions. So we are doing another mailbag today. And I think we got some actual great questions, okay? Obviously, we got all sorts of good stuff on 2026 college hoops recruiting. J.J. Andrews is one of the star players. Why is he not getting very much respect? We'll also talk about early Heisman favorites. We'll talk about the 2026 NCAA tournament. This weird UNC report that also is kind of a Hubert Davis thing. And oh, by the way, we'll also wrap with some pop culture stuff. I love when we don't just go sports. So if you have any questions for me, drop them in. We will try to get to them. But before we do, a couple quick things. One, make sure you're subscribed to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. On YouTube, we're closing in on 58,000 subscribers. I am so grateful for this audience. By the way, July is trending to be up from a year ago, so I cannot thank all of you enough for your support. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Also, you can get the podcast on Apple and Spotify as well. Speaking of podcasts, really quick, by the way, if you are watching in YouTube, we have linked our college football betting page. Okay, so outside of the Aaron Torres Pod, we do a college football specific betting show during the college football season. And we have started ramping up content on that page where we're doing team-by-team previews. So we've done Bama, Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma. We'll do Tennessee tonight. So make sure you're subscribed. If you want to do me a solid, just click the link that is pinned to the top of the YouTube channel and just subscribe. You know, if you want to watch, that's great. But we need to get to 1,000 subscribers before the start of the season. That is our secondary page. It will not change what we do here. But do your boy Torres a solid. Subscribe over there as well. We appreciate your support. All right, so mailbag show today. Now, this isn't necessarily a mailbag question, but I do want to start. Listen, if you listen to the show, you know I like to have fun. I like to relax. I don't take myself too seriously. When I mess up, I like to slap myself on the wrist and call myself an idiot, and we have fun on this show. But I will say, you know, in the greater world of life, been a little bit of a tougher week, right? Obviously, earlier in the week, we referenced this, I think, on the back end of last show, but Ozzy Osbourne passed away. Malcolm Jamal Warner passed away. Now, I'll be real. As a child of the 90s, you know, the Cosby Show was a little bit before my time. Ozzy Osbourne isn't really my thing. I think I'd be remiss being a sports podcast. This is the Aaron Torres Pod. Like, we got to acknowledge the passing on Thursday morning of Hulk Hogan, okay? And so, again, we'll spend just a couple minutes on this. I just want to pay tribute to a guy, you know, I think probably one of the 5 or 6 defining faces of the 1980s into 1990s. Yeah, brother. Yeah, brother. And listen, I think we can all smile and laugh. I'll also be sad when you see that picture. But I'll say this, like, I'm not even a wrestling guy. Like transparently, professional wrestling never really did much for me personally. But Hulk Hogan was a crossover star that I think transcended wrestling, right? And you know, I'll just give you a little quick side story before we get to the mailbag. But, you know, listen, I'm known for sports. I'm known for largely college sports, college basketball, college football, whatever. But obviously, you know, everybody has ambitions beyond just what they're doing. And I think Hulk Hogan, to me, is really emblematic of when you're really good at what you do, your brand can transcend the thing that you're known for, right? So you look at Hulk Hogan, again, I'm not a wrestling guy, but I knew all about Hulk Hogan because he was in video games. His likeness, you know, the very popular name, image, likeness was everywhere. I'm pretty sure, my mom's actually moving out of my childhood house as we speak. I'm pretty sure there's probably some Hulk Hogan action figures that are sitting around somewhere in that house. He was in Rocky, obviously. What was it? Rocky 3 with Clubber Lang. And so it's just a really sad day. And I know a lot of people are professional wrestling fans, but I'll say in my life, I think there are about 3 or 4 guys that really transcend professional wrestling. The Rock would certainly be one. I think he's probably the 2000s version of Hulk Hogan as far as a guy that's in TV and movies. The brand has grown with the wrestling stuff. When I was a kid, Stone Cold Steve Austin was a guy that I think everybody, if you were just a teenager in the 2000s, you knew a little bit about. And I think there are other guys that are great wrestlers, but again, I just don't know how many transcended the sport. I'll tell you a quick side story. I was at Fox when in FS1 when Fox got the WWE or the professional wrestling package. And it was funny because I remember being in the building and people were like, oh, CM Punk's going to be here today. And I'm like, who's CM Punk? I have no idea. And I'm sure he's a great wrestler. I'm sure everybody that's watching knows a lot about him. But name didn't mean anything to me. But Hulk Hogan, name means something to everybody. I guarantee if I called my mom right now, she'd know who Hulk Hogan is, and my wife would know who Hulk Hogan is. I'm sure you know who Hulk Hogan is. I'm sure your grandkids, your kids, your mom, your dad, whatever, know who Hulk Hogan is. So it's a little bit sad. 71, he passed away at 71, certainly a very fulfilled life. And so because of that, I don't think it'd be right to start the show without at least mentioning it. Like I said, yeah, brother. RIP to Hulk Hogan because, like I said, transcendent crossover star. Like I said, outside of The Rock, maybe Stone Cold Steve Austin, maybe Macho Man Randy Savage. We all stepped into a Slim Jim thanks to him. Not many guys that transcend the sports. I just want to acknowledge the passing of Hulk Hogan at 71 years old on Thursday afternoon. All right, producer Matt. So quick, before you even pop up the first question, reminder. We'll probably do these mailbags a couple times a month. Bottom line is, it's just that time of year. There's a lot going on. We're previewing a lot of stuff. I want to know what you guys want to talk about. So we did a mailbag episode, and what we did was we put a post on the YouTube channel. So if you go to the YouTube channel, I believe it's like posts or community or whatever, we put a mailbag post. You can get your questions in there. You can always email Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. And producer Matt, any interesting questions you can flag, and we will try to get to at some point in the show if they are in the live chat. All right, let's get it going. First question. What do we got, producer Matt? All right. Roll Tide Prods says, what are your early Heisman finalist predictions? Okay. So I assume Roll Tide is an Alabama fan. I'll say this really quick. With the Heisman, I think saying finalists makes it a little bit difficult. I mean, to pick the 4 guys that are going to be in New York or 5 guys or 3 guys. If I knew that, I'd just go to Vegas and bet a little bit on all of them. And I think with the Heisman, what's become pretty interesting is that to me, it feels like an award that I feel like more often than not is an award that somebody emerges sort of not really, but a little bit out of nowhere, right? Last year, Travis Hunter, I think he was about 50, 60 to 1 coming into the season. Now, look, nobody had Colorado winning 9 games, but everyone knew who he was, but I don't think people thought he was a legitimate Heisman contender. And I'll say this, even Cam Ward, it's like we liked Cam Ward. We didn't think Cam Ward would be the best player in college football, arguably, or at least the best quarterback, and be a guy in position to get the number 1 overall pick. You go through previous years, Kyler Murray coming off a red shirt wins the Heisman. Joe Burrow, go back and look at his junior year stats versus his senior year stats. So I think most years it's somebody relatively off the radar. I'll be real, though. I do have a Heisman favorite coming into the year, and I think it's one of the mainstream guys. And to me, I actually think my preseason Heisman favorite is pretty obvious. I like Cade Klubnik from Clemson, the Clemson quarterback, okay? And why I like Cade Klubnik, there's really a few reasons why. Is first of all, I think the schedule sets up very nicely for him to be a name in cover. I think even a backtrack, 3rd-year starter, 3rd year in Garrett Riley's system. Remember, Garrett Riley was the hottest offensive coordinator what would have been 4 off seasons ago. That was the year. Remember, Jimbo Fisher needed an offensive coordinator. He ended up hiring Bobby Petrino. Nick Saban needed an offensive coordinator. He ended up hiring Tommy Rees. And Garrett Riley was the guy everybody wanted. He ends up going to Clemson. Well, year one, it's kind of up and down for Cade Klubnik. Last year, you start off slow against Georgia, and then you take off like wildfire, and you're awesome, and you're great for the rest of the season. Well, this year, I think the schedule breaks very nicely for him. You have LSU at home to open the season. So week 1, LSU at Clemson. I think that's noteworthy for a few things. Is you are going up against the guy that for some reason people think is the number 1 pick in the draft, Garrett Nussmeier. I'm not a Garrett Nussmeier guy. I don't get it. I don't see it. But you win that game. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, this Klubnik guy just beat the guy that some people are saying is the number 1 pick in the draft. Then from there, it's a manageable schedule, but there's also just enough big games where you'll kind of stay in the spotlight. You play North Carolina with Bill Belichick. Don't forget Bill Belichick, of course, is the North Carolina head coach. I'm sure that'll be an ABC 3:30 or 7 p.m. Eastern time start. You play Louisville, which I think will be a top 25 team with Miller Moss as their quarterback. And yeah, by the way, Florida State, they should be improved because they can't be much worse than they were last year. And then on top of that, you have also the closing game against South Carolina. So I guess in theory, if it's a total dud against South Carolina, that probably doesn't line up well for you. But I think they're going to beat LSU in week 1. And I think from there, things really get rolling for Cade Klubnik. And again, I just don't think he's going to face a lot of super elite defenses. A couple other things, too, as far as the Heisman is concerned. I don't love any of the other candidates. I am on record as saying I need to see more from Arch Manning before I anoint him anything. I think he could be good. I don't think beating UL Monroe and Mississippi State makes him the Heisman favorite to be coming into this year. And I need to see it from Arch Manning. Garrett Nussmeier, not a fan, not a believer. I think it's LSU is maybe the most interesting team in college football because they have at Clemson, at Ole Miss, Florida before the end of September. They are either going to be like in the top 5, angling for a college football playoff, or the most disappointing team in college football all by the end of September. We're going to get answers on them right away. I'm not a Nussmeier guy. Gunnar Stockton at Georgia is going to need time. Ty Simpson in Alabama. I'm not even sold Ty Simpson will be the starter by the end of the year. I think Keelan Russell is going to get some reps there. Penn State, I know there's a lot of buzz about Penn State, but Aller has not been great in big games. I think they'll rely on the running backs. I don't see a lot of obvious candidates coming into the year, but Cade Klubnik, the Clemson quarterback, to me is that guy. And I think the other thing is, too, Clemson should be very good. Clemson will be in the college football playoff race, and in theory, he will have that head-to-head win against Garrett Nussmeier for all season long, kind of propping him up. So Cade Klubnik is my favorite. I don't even know. I can't start projecting Heisman finalists outside of him, but he is my favorite right now as of July 24th, 2025. Producer Matt, what is the next question here in our mailbag? And again, you could drop your questions as well, Aaron Torres, or email Aaron Torres podcastquestions@gmail.com. Great question from Tori with a great little caveat there. By the way, this was written in the YouTube comments, so you can find it. I'm not making it up. He said, do you think the SEC will get as many teams into the big dance in 2026 as they did this past year? Or was last year an anomaly? Hashtag woo pig suey. And then the PS, which again is on YouTube, so I'm not making this up. He says, you are literally the best and most criminally underrated, my guy. So, Tori, thank you. I assume Tori with that woo pig suey is somewhere in this great state of Arkansas, the natural state. But his question is, after the SEC got 14 NCAA tournament teams a year ago, do we think they'll get as many this coming year? Transparently, no, because transparently, I don't think you should ever expect when there is a historical anomaly of an outlier, or I guess an anomaly and an outlier are the same thing, so it wouldn't be an anomaly of an outlier, but a historical anomaly, a historical outlier. I don't think you can assume that it's ever going to happen again, right? Shohei Ohtani went 50 and 50 last year, 50 home runs, 50 stolen bases. I don't think you can assume that he's going to do it again next year just because he did in a previous year. And so I don't think we can expect it. And I think there's a few other variables as well. One, I think we're going to look back on last year as just a totally unique year in college basketball altogether. Remember, last year was the final year of the COVID fifth-year waiver. And I don't even think I realized it in real time. How many teams in college basketball, and frankly, to a degree, college football as well, were really built with all of the chips in the middle in that 2024-2025 season, right? You go back and look at the teams a year ago that were loaded with 4th, 5th, 6th year guys, many guys that would not be playing college basketball in any other era because they would have run out of eligibility. Auburn Tigers, essentially the entire team was 5th and 6th year seniors that would not be in college basketball under any other circumstance. Ole Miss had a couple returnees. They had a couple 5th, 6th year guys. Tennessee, they add Chaz Lanier, a 5th year guy, to a bunch of other 5th year guys, plus Zakai Ziegler, plus Jemai Meshack. Florida, all 3 of their starters in the backcourt, Walter Clayton Jr., Elijah Martin, and also on top of that, who was the third one? Will Richard. All 5th year guys. Kentucky, the entire team was seemingly 5th and 6th year seniors. Even Arkansas, Coach Cal's known as the one and done guy coming into Arkansas. Nelly Davis, guy that would not have been there if not for that 5th year COVID waiver. So I just don't think it's fair to expect all of those teams year over year to flip their rosters and stay competitive. I think the other thing too, it was a historical outlier of a year in terms of what the SEC did in the out of conference, right? Because I remember talking about this on Selection Sunday, and I think everybody who listens to this show knows I'm not some SEC homer that's just always going to default to the SEC as the greatest and this and that. I said it this week when Signetti was going after the SEC and Rhett Lashley was going after the SEC in football. I said, I think a lot of what they're saying is justified on the football side. But on the basketball side, people were saying, oh, how are you going to put 14 teams in from one league? It's like, well, who are you going to put in ahead of them? Look at those teams and what they did at the out of conference last year. Auburn, they beat everybody last year. They beat UNC. They beat Iowa State. They beat Houston. They beat Purdue. I mean, they beat everybody in the out of conference. Kentucky beat Gonzaga and Duke in the out of conference. Louisville as well, who ended up, of course, being a really good team. You go across the board, think about everybody else. Alabama beat Illinois, beat Creighton, beat Houston. They had great wins. I mean, even some of the teams that weren't even that good. And remember talking about this in February and March. Georgia, people were like, they're 13th place in the SEC. How can you put them in? They beat St. John's. That's as good of a win as anybody had in college basketball last year. Missouri had great wins. Arkansas had the win over Michigan, which ended up being a top 4 team that made the Sweet 16. So I think the combination of it's hard for me to see the teams being that as good with the combination of this, just the way the schedule broke, the way that everybody beat the crap out of everybody that wasn't from the SEC. It really set up everyone once they enter the conference to be able to take losses, to be able to be 7-11 in the SEC and still have an NCAA tournament resume. So to me, I still think the SEC is going to be in the short conversation of best leagues. If you remember, coming into last year, I believe the record for bids was 8 all time for the SEC. I think the SEC is going to probably hit that, maybe surpass it this year. I think they'll be right up there with the Big 10 and the Big 12 in terms of total bids. I think it's a little bit unrealistic, though, to expect them to go back to 14 bids in a 16-team league. All right, Producer Matt, what is the next question on the board here? Oh, I've been waiting for this one. Pop it up. All right, Steven. So, Steven, this is a very obscure question that I need to address really quick. Then we'll come back and get to some fun stuff. He said, how did Boogie Fland get a raw deal at Arkansas? Okay. So, at some point in the spring, we were talking about Boogie Fland. Okay. So, Boogie Fland, of course, was at Arkansas, leaves Arkansas. And I said something in passing about, I think Boogie Fland got a little bit of a raw deal. And I said it in passing. I didn't think much of it at the time. But apparently, this has ground Steven's gears because, Steven, and I love you and I appreciate anybody's support who listens to this show. This guy has commented on a minimum of 10 different posts, maybe like 8, saying, oh, Boogie Fland, he got the benefit of, why did he get a raw deal in Arkansas? Okay, Steven, we're going to talk this out once, and I never want to hear from you again on this topic. Grow up. Let's talk this out, man to man, and then we're going to get on to some fun stuff, okay? So, Boogie Fland, let's just talk this out. And, Matt, pop up the question one more time, just so we have it. One more time. How did Boogie Fland get a raw deal at Arkansas? Let's talk this through, okay? So, Boogie Fland, of course, was Arkansas's, I don't know if he was the best player, but, early in the season, Boogie Fland was their leading scorer, ball handler, leading assist guy, whatever. Arkansas is struggling. They start 0-5 in SEC play. He goes down. Arkansas immediately gets hot. 3 or 4 games later, they go to Rupp Arena, win that game, and the season takes off. From there, they play their best basketball. They make the NCAA tournament. To Boogie Fland's credit, he ends up coming back for the tournament, kind of plays off the bench. I thought he was, if I remember correctly, pretty good against Kansas. And, St. John's, Texas Tech, he didn't do much. Okay. After the season, he enters the portal. He enters the NBA draft. Then he enters the portal. Then he ends up committed to Florida. And so that is where apparently he got a raw deal at Arkansas conversation began. Okay. So let me say this. Did he actually literally get a raw deal at Arkansas? No. I think he got the best deal possible. Coach Cal believed in him. Coach Cal put the ball in his hands from day one. And Coach Cal, early in the season, it was kind of sink or swim with Boogie Fland. I think that's all accurate. I think that's all fair. Maybe people would disagree. Where I think he got a raw deal was 3 things, really. First of all, he was better than people give him credit for when he was on the court at Arkansas. Now, the team was not good, but we can go back and look up the stats. Statistically, he was having one of the best individual seasons in the history of SEC basketball for a freshman guard. I forget the numbers off the top of my head. It was like 14.5 points, 6 assists. I believe he was leading all freshmen in college basketball in assist to turnover ratio. So he was having a good year. Beyond that, and I've said this repeatedly, I think that he got too much blame when things were bad and too much blame when things got good when he left. I think him getting hurt, what it allowed things to happen was everybody slotted into a more natural role. DJ Wagner had the ball in his hands. Nelly Davis was able to play off the ball, but be kind of that attacking guy. It also is noteworthy that was right around the time that Nelly Davis got healthy. And sometimes you can have a situation where an injury frees up everyone else to be the best version of themselves. I'll also say this. I'm a Cal defender, but the more guys he has at his disposal, the quicker trigger he sometimes has in terms of pulling a guy if he makes a mistake. Well, now all of a sudden there's no Boogie Fland. You can't pull Nelly Davis if he misses 2 threes in a row. You got to play him. You can't pull Carter Knox if this happens. You can't pull Billy Richmond or DJ Wagner if that happens. And so that's the second thing. He was better than people realize or give him credit for. I don't think him getting injured is the sole reason that Arkansas got hot. And then the third thing that I don't think he gets credit for, he came back for the NCAA tournament. It would have been very easy for him to say, I think I'm an NBA player. And so because of it, I'm going to shut it down. I'm not coming back. I'm not coming and risking my NBA draft stock by playing in the NCAA tournament. And if I don't play well, it could be hurt. So he came back for the good of the team. So when I say I think he got a raw deal, Steven, let's settle this once and for all, my man. I'm sure you're a great guy, but God, are you annoying? I guess that's probably how my wife thinks about me. But anyway, God, are you annoying? Why did he get a raw deal? I think he was better than people gave him credit for. I don't think him getting hurt is the only reason that Arkansas started playing better. And finally, I give him credit for coming back. And so I just think it's not as simple as saying he stunk, the team stunk, and then he comes back and he gets hurt and everything. I think it's more complicated. The one thing I will say, and you can go back to when he committed to Florida, because I said this consistently. I said he has to prove that he can be the lead guard on a team that consistently wins, because that's the one thing he didn't prove. He proved he can get his points. He proved he can get his assists. He proved he can get others involved. He even proved he can play off the bench, which is what he's not going to do at Florida. Now he's got to prove that he can consistently be a guy that contributes to winning, because he really didn't when he was on the court at Arkansas. All right. I hope that settles that one once and for all. I do not want that conversation again. It is so annoying, Steven. Get over yourself. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. When we do, very interesting story out of North Carolina today. It kind of ties into some Hubert Davis stuff. We'll discuss that. 2026 recruiting, some great pop culture questions. We'll get to some of your questions in the chat. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute. But before we do, I have so many people that reach out and say, Torres, you give me hours and hours and hours of free content every day, every month, every year. What can I do to help support the show? Well, you want to support the show and look good in the process. Make sure to check out and support the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com. kentuckyfans.com/merchandise. Some of you wondering, what can I get in that merch store, Torres? Well, Kentucky fans, we got our Mark Pope Hope and Pope t-shirts. That is right. Mark Pope, monster first year. Year 2 is going to be even better. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirt at AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is coming. It is here. John Calipari has things rocking. Get your Big Pig Invasion tees. Again, AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. St. John's fans, we have our Big Rick Energy t-shirts. And if you're just a college basketball fan in general, guess what? Your March is for Day Drinking shirt. That is the shirt that you need year-round, but especially for the next NCAA tournament. You can order yours now. By the way, football fans, we got you covered too. Auburn fans, we already know the freeze warning has hit the plains. Make sure to get your freeze warning t-shirts. Also, Nebraska fans, new era, new rules, the t-shirt that you need before the start of this coming season. And oh, by the way, if you're a Colorado fan, if you're just a Coach Prime fan, we have our Dion shirts and hats, more of them than we know what to do with. So to check out the full line of Aaron Torres Media merch and also support the show, good news is we're going to have even more for the fall. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. And for more information, you can always reach out at Aaron Torres Podcast Questions @gmail.com. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So keep the conversation, keep the questions coming in the chat. I have a few flagged already. We'll get to them later in the show. Couple more topics to get to. Before we get to them, though, you already know who I got to shout out. Our friends, our partners. I got to thank Collie Puffs and ColliePuffs.com. Okay, so ColliePuffs.com. Collie Puffs. It's that time of year. Listen, you're walking around with your shirt off. Let's be honest. I see the analytics on this show. A lot of guys listen to this show. And it's that time of year. You're at the beach. You're at the pool. You're mowing the lawn with your shirt off. You know, hopefully you're not at, like a Little League game with your shirt off. But that's another conversation for another day. When that shirt comes off, you don't want to look like a filthy slob. Therefore, you need a snack that is both healthy but delicious as well. Something you're going to like, your kids are going to like, maybe your parents, your grandparents, whoever you hang out with are going to like. You need Collie Puffs. Okay, first of all, the thing I love about Collie Puffs, family-owned company. What's really cool, actually, side story, a lot of listeners of this show have reached out to Collie Puffs and ColliePuffs.com. They have spoken directly with Joey, the owner of the company. It's a family-owned company. You know, when you email ColliePuffs.com, you're not getting some corporate bot. No, you're talking to Joey, the founder, okay? And so I bring it up because it's a family-owned company, but beyond just being a family-owned company, it is a great product, and it is the new age health food snack, and it's the difference. It's the thing you need to eat rather than the crap in your grocery aisle, okay? Put away the Doritos, put away the Fritos, the salty, unhealthy stuff. Try Collie Puffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. Here's the best part, though. They taste freaking delicious. At this point, you don't got to take my opinion for it. Try them for yourself with a special offer from Collie Puffs. All you got to do is go to ColliePuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com, ColliePuffs.com. Here's the cool part. So many of you have reached out that they are now giving a special offer for listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Use promo code Torres, TORRES, to get 15% off. ColliePuffs.com. Promo code Torres, you get 15% off. They are available on Amazon as well, but you only get the discount, ColliePuffs.com, promo code Torres. We appreciate their support. All right, we got more questions in the chat. We'll get to them in a minute. Want to get to a couple other ones, though. Producer Matt, what is the next question? Okay, great question from Jordan from YouTube. He said, how much pressure is on Hubert Davis this year? Really quickly, I do think it is worth acknowledging a story that popped up on Thursday related to UNC that I don't really fully understand why it's a story, but UNC is at ACC Media Days today. Bill Belichick apparently spoke. I haven't seen anything noteworthy yet that he said, but I bring it up because there's this report of like, oh, Carolina's interested in joining the SEC. This is, of course, via Inside Carolina. Now, the catch is, probably wouldn't be until 2030. And I'll be honest, maybe I'm too in the weeds on this stuff. I don't really understand why this is a story, okay? So first of all, everybody knows that as part of the deal to keep Clemson and Florida State from suing, the buyout to leave the ACC drops in 2030. So 2030 has been for months the date where like the next realistic round of expansion or realignment could happen in college sports, because it's all of a sudden more affordable for all of these schools to get out of the current TV deal in the ACC. Now, a lot of these schools have no option. Pitt, Boston College, Wake Forest, they're just hoping and praying the ACC stays together forever. But on the chance that it doesn't, till 2030 is probably realistically where we are going to be as far as the ACC is concerned before any major moves get made. So I don't get why this is a story. I don't think anything is pressing. The buyout to get out of the ACC contract right now for Carolina is $91 million. Okay, I feel like Dr. Evil. $91 million. Here's the thing. Guess what? They're paying Bill Belichick $10 million a year. We're going to get to their basketball team that is $14 million this year. Where are they coming up with $91 million? It's a cool headline. I don't think it happens anytime soon. So let's get back to the question. Producer Matt, I'm sorry to keep doing this to you, but please pop up the question one more time. How much pressure is on Hubert Davis this year? Producer Matt says he's convinced that something may be pressing on this Carolina thing. If I'm missing something, by all means, get in the chat, tell me about it. But let's focus on Hubert Davis right now, because the question is, how much pressure is on Hubert Davis? I got revised settlement things. Okay, whatever. We'll get to that later. All right, how much pressure is on Hubert Davis this year? The answer is a ton, okay? And let me start by saying this. I actually give Carolina credit. I think they have been patient with Hubert Davis. I think they've been fair to Hubert Davis. I think they have given Hubert Davis everything he needs to win. But now, to quote Wedding Crashers, no excuses, play like a champion, you have to win. So the question is, how much pressure is on him? I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say like a 9 to 9.5. Now let me be fair here. Let me kind of cover this from all the bases, okay? Why is there so much pressure? It's easy. They've not lived up to the Carolina standard. I understand that it's really hard year over year in college basketball to be great every single season with the way the sport is. But these 4 years for Hubert Davis have been very bumpy, very up and down over the course of his tenure there, right? Year one, he takes over. They really struggle into February. Then they get hot late. They beat Duke at Cameron, Coach K's final home game. They get into the tournament. Correct me, Carolina fans. I believe as a 9 seed that year. I could be wrong. But what I do know is they make a Final Four. They beat Duke. It's unbelievable. They play Kansas in the national championship game and lose. That was the first year. Credit to Hubert Davis turning around midseason. Year 2, they missed the tournament. Year 3 was probably the best start to finish deal. They win the ACC, losing the Sweet 16. Year 4 was last year. Struggled out of the gate. 1 quad 1 win, easily could have been left out of the tournament, maybe should have been left out of the tournament. And so I bring it up because Hubert Davis has not lived up to the Carolina standard. I'm sorry, this is a program that I don't think over a 4-year period should be on the bubble or out of the tournament, essentially in 3 of 4 years. Now, you can argue in 2022 they weren't actually on the bubble by the end of the season. They were on the bubble or the wrong side of the bubble probably until about mid to late February. Now, to their credit, they turned it around. But 1 year you missed the tournament. 1 year you're in the first 4. 1 ACC regular season title. 0 conference tournament titles. That's not the standard at Carolina. And I think what's equally as interesting is what has been put into the program this year. Now, this is stuff that we talked about all spring, but I bring it up because there are no excuses anymore, right? When what was it, about early to mid-February, Hubert Davis had that, he was doing his coach's show, and he said, the world has changed. I can't believe it, but we need a GM. And that was my sign that he was going to get this year to figure it out. But they hired the GM, Jim Tanner, former agent, coming from the agent world. But that also was like the first sign of, okay, we're giving you the agent, or we're giving you the GM. I believe the GM salary is almost at $1 million, maybe like the 700 to 800,000 range. And then they put together this insane roster that inside Carolina, ironically enough, was the first to report, got paid about $14 million. Now, it's not my money. I don't care. The $14 million is certainly on the high end, but they're probably not the only one that is spent in the $12 to $15 million range on a roster. But now you got to go out and deliver. Now, the good news is for Carolina, I actually, now that all of the pieces are there, I actually do like the roster. You look at the roster across the board. One, we've talked about Caleb Wilson, not Caleb Love. I was going to call him Caleb Love. Talk about Caleb Wilson. I think he's going to be a star. 6'10", he's a playmaker, he's a competitor, can guard multiple positions. With Mikael Brown Jr. and who's the other one? Cam Boozer in this conference. It's hard to say that he's like the definitive best freshman in the conference, but he could be like a fringe all-ACC first team guy. I really believe it. Luka Bogovic, one of the better international players coming over. I think he could be a star. Now, we'll see how he adjusts. We'll see the athleticism. But the guy is like 21 years old that has multiple years of pro experience. I think that they have a chance to, I think he's another one that has a chance to be good if he's as good as expected, if he acclimates well, all of that. Henry Visar, everybody knows I'm a fan of. I thought he was one of the 10 best players in the portal. 7-footer. Don't just look at the stats from Arizona. Remember, early in the year, he was on the bench. Krivas gets hurt. He starts. By the end of the year, he's one of the best big men in the Big 12. Go look at what he did at Fog Allen Fieldhouse against Kansas. Look at what he did against Duke in the NCAA tournament. He is a very, very, very good player. Jaron Stevenson I like. Jonathan Powell I like. I think the one thing that is abundantly clear, they have added a lot of size and a lot of positional size to this roster. So I bring it up because I think they're going to be better, but I think they have to be better for Hubert Davis to be comfortable. And I think it's a two-pronged thing to expectations for this year. One, I think with the roster the way that it is, you have to be good immediately and consistently. It can't be one of these things because in 2022 and 2025 this past year, they've struggled out of the gate and they've kind of figured it out. And they've kind of, let's be honest, they've kind of gotten fat off the middle and bottom of the ACC. I hate to be a jerk. It's the truth. Now, 2022, again, they went to Duke and won, so I don't want to discredit that. But this year they won like 8 of 9, 9 of 10, something like that. The only loss was to Duke. The problem was they didn't really beat anybody of note. So you look at the out-of-conference schedule, Michigan State on a neutral, CBS Sports Classic, you play UCLA. There's a couple of, Georgetown at home. I can't remember all of the games. Kansas at home. I can't remember all of the games. You have to be good right away. This is freaking Carolina. It isn't enough just to be the 5th best team in the ACC, get it as a 7 seed, and hope to make a run. Now, does that save his job? Probably not. Maybe. I don't know. But what I do think is you have to be very good from the beginning of the year. And I think equally as important, you have to win in the tournament too. And the tournament's a crapshoot. I think if you're a 1 seed and you lose in the second round, I don't think that means that, Hubert Davis stinks. I just think it means that, you have to be good in the regular season. You have to matter from November on, and then you got to have success in March. And again, March is weird. Weird stuff happens. So certainly if you struggle, if you lose a weird game because someone twists an ankle or gets in foul trouble, that's different. But it has to be the regular season success, which then translates to tournament success. That, to me, is what I believe will be the X factor for Hubert Davis in Carolina. Producer Matt, do we have any more questions? I know we have questions, so I don't even know why I asked that. All right. Ooh, I love this one. So Clint in Peru. Yes, you read that correctly, Peru. And I would add to this as well. This isn't a made-up thing. Clint comments on all of our shows, all of our tweets. It's very cool to have I'll say this side tangent. I see obviously the analytics and I'm looking at, okay, this many people from this state listen, that many people from that state listen. It's pretty cool though when somebody from Peru is checking in, and this is what he says. Best in the business, AT and KSR. Listen, I love the KSR guys and girls, so no comment there. But he said Andrew Finkelstein, or he said love from Miraflores, Peru. Then he said Andrew Finkelstein and Matt Norlander say 2026 is the weakest high school basketball recruiting class ever. Do you agree, AT? All right. So first of all, I should mention, 1, love the love from Peru. 2, it's Adam Finkelstein, not Andrew Finkelstein. I did a panel with him at the Final Four. Great guy. But their conversation was coming out a little bit like the conversation that we had on this show. Coming out of Peach Jam, coming out of this weekend, the last big recruiting weekend, what is the 2026 class and are they bad? And I did not personally hear this, but I guess that Clint in Peru is insinuating that they said it's the weakest class ever. So a couple thoughts on that. One, I don't think it's the class of 2025 because I think the class of 2025 has a chance to be like an all-time legitimately great class. Okay, so that was Darren Peterson, who's now at Kansas, AJ DeBonsa, BYU, Cam Boozer at Duke, Mikel Brown Jr. If you don't know that name, you better get to know it very quickly. Who else? Koa Pete, Arizona, Caleb Wilson, North Carolina, Nate Ament, Tennessee, Chris Sinak Jr., Darius Acuff. You go on and there's so many good players, and I think it has a chance to be like an all-time great class. I think the standard bearers right now, 2004 was Dwight Howard, Rajon Rondo, Rudy Gay, Josh Smith, J.R. Smith, whatever. 2008 was Kevin Love, James Harden, Derrick Rose. We'll see if we get there. But 2025 has a chance to be an all-time great class, okay? So why I bring it up is because I see a lot of people saying, like, 2026 is good, but it's not 2024 or 2025. Well, I think 2025 is great. Why are we creating revisionist history about 2024? 2024 was Cooper Flagg's year. Now, remember, he reclassified to even get into 2024. But after Cooper Flagg, didn't we just have an NBA draft that no one was excited about pick 2 on? Like, Dylan Harper was good, but what are realistic expectations for Dylan Harper? That he'll play in the, like, is anybody like 8-time All-Star, Dylan Harper, lock it in? You know, Ace Bailey, we had the conversation about Ace Bailey. What do we expect from him? By the way, other top 10 prospects in that class, like Liam McNeely. I love Liam McNeely, but Liam McNeely was a fringe first-round pick. He was the second to last. So I bring it up because everyone's like, oh, well, 2026 isn't as good as 2024 or 2025. Why are we just pretending like 2024 was this amazing class? It wasn't. And to me, 2026 feels a lot of the same way. Why do I say that? It's because there's a star player at the top. That's Tyron Stokes. Now, we've talked a ton about Tyron Stokes. We probably will not talk about him very much on this show when talking about the 2026 class, but he's by far the best player. And I think that resembles, to me, the 2024 class. Cooper Flagg was the number one player. There were no questions. Nobody debated it. And I think it's the same with Tyron Stokes. Am I saying Tyron Stokes is as good as Cooper Flagg? No, but I think he would be in the short conversation for best player in all of these classes. If he was in the 2025 class, I think he'd be a top 4, top 5 player in that class. If he was in 2024, he'd be the number 2 player behind Cooper Flagg. If he was in 2023, which was like the DJ Wagner, Aaron Bradshaw class, he'd probably be the number 1 player. So I just bring it up because I don't think 2024 was that good. I think Tyron Stokes as the top player is a headliner. And then I think after that, there's a lot of questions about all these guys. And the one thing I have heard Finkelstein say, he's a great recruiting writer, is that I think what he said, which I feel to me is fair, is there's a lot of prospects that are one of 2 things, but not both, right? In the perfect world, a great prospect is somebody who is both going to be really good in college, but then also has long-term NBA ability, right? So like Darren Peterson might be the best player in college basketball this year at Kansas, but he also projects as like an NBA All-Star. AJ DeBonsa could be the same. Cooper Flagg was, whatever. And what Finkelstein said, and I agree with, is you have players that are one of 2 things. They're either a player that projects as a really good college player that probably doesn't have a ton of NBA upside, or it's a dude who has a ton of NBA upside that probably isn't going to make much impact in college and his best basketball 3, 4, 5 years down the road. So in terms of those players, just a couple that stand out. We talked about Jordan Smith Jr. the other day. I think he's the perfect example of the kid that doesn't really project as like a great long-term NBA player, but could be a great college player immediately. And maybe with this NIL world, if he's not a high NBA draft prospect, he stays in college for 2 or 3 years. 6-foot guard, plays his butt off. I've said it consistently. I loved how he took on the role of defender, wing stopper, secondary ball handler for that Team USA U19 team. Mikel Brown Jr. was the star of that team. AJ DeBonsa was the star of that team. Jordan Smith Jr. was a player who was a defender, a role player, or whatever, but I think he projects as a great lead guard in college basketball. Are we still live? Can you see me? All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. We're going to be calling the internet company shortly after we get off air here because this is insane. Second time in 3 episodes that we've had internet connection issues, and there's no real weather to speak of here in California. Let's keep it going. Just producer Matt, give me a thumbs up. You can hear me, all of that. All right, so I was talking about Jordan Smith Jr. Let's keep it going. We'll do another good edit so nobody will even notice this unless you're watching live. And Charter, Torres is coming for you after we get off air, okay? But yeah, so Jordan Smith Jr., because he's 6 feet, he doesn't project as a great NBA player. You watch the NBA, how many dudes that are 6 feet or under are even in the league at this point? It's like Chris Paul, Kyrie Irving, that's kind of it. Every other guard is 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". I just don't know that he translates to be a great NBA player. So he's a perfect example of a guy that I think is really good. I just don't think that he's a great NBA prospect. Talon Kinney. First of all, I think he's probably a little bit better of an NBA prospect than people realize because I think he's a little bit taller than people realize. I've seen him listed at 6'1", 6'3". I just saw him the other day. I think he's closer to like 6'4", 6'5" at this point. And by the way, it's not unprecedented for dudes to have growth spurts at 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 years old. Talon Kinney may end up at Louisville. If Talon Kinney ends up at Louisville, remember, who's Louisville's point guard right now? Mikael Brown Jr., who was 5'11" as a junior and is now a legitimate 6'5". And so I think Talon Kinney's a great prospect. I just think that right now he's not deemed a great NBA draft prospect. Caleb Holt, another guy who I think 6'5", kind of a wing, probably at this point in the development of college basketball or basketball in general, 6'5" is a little bit on the smaller side, believe it or not, of being a 2 or a 3. So he's really got to tighten up the handle, whatever. But he's another guy that I think he's going to be a really good college basketball player. So I just bring it up because a couple things. One, I think there's a lot of really good players that don't necessarily project as great NBA draft prospects. But I also think there are guys that are going to emerge as well. And I think that's an important part, right? I was thinking about this. Con Knippel, the guy who just was, the 3rd, 4th pick in the NBA draft 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Nobody was talking about him as a top 5 prospect, even coming out of his senior year of high school. So stuff changes quick. Guys are going to emerge. I actually don't think this class is, frankly, very much different than most others. I actually think a class like 2025 is actually the outlier, not this class. And the one thing I would add really quickly, because I want to take a break and get to some other stuff, and hopefully we have no internet issues, is that there may be some reclassifications, right? 2024, this great class that everyone hypes up as this great class, Cooper Flagg reclassified into. And it's the same with 2025. DeBonsa reclassified into there. I think we'll get some reclassifications before it's all said and done into the 2026 class. It's funny. First of all, Bruce Branch Jr., who I think he might be the number 1 prospect now. I know as of like a week or 2 ago, he was still listed at number 2. He is a player that I think some believe could potentially reclassify. He's out of Arizona. He's going to either IMG or Montverde, one of those schools next year. Also, the number 1 player, Baba Olatunde, I apologize if I messed up his name. He is the kid that is out of the Maryland area. He is still the number 1 player in the class of 2027, according to 24/7 Sports. There is talk of him reclassifying as well. Guess the point I'm trying to make is a lot can change. And oh, by the way, like I said, guys are going to emerge, including J.J. Andrews. J.J. Andrews, for Arkansas fans that are mad that I didn't mention him, well, guess what? We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. When we do, we'll talk a little J.J. Andrews. We'll wrap with your questions, and we have a great pop culture question to wrap the show. Apologize about the technical difficulties. Quick break. Be right back. What's up, everybody? It's AT, and listen, I've said it a million times. This podcasting game, it ain't for everybody. It's tiring. It's exhausting. Long days, late nights, and sometimes, I got to be honest, you look like a filthy slob when the day is over. Thankfully, that's when my friends Filebot came in. They just sent me some of their summer line. Let's check it out. Look at me now. Listen, this is the perfect summer attire. We got the short sleeves. It's perfect for podcasting. It's perfect for the beach. It's perfect for the pool. And I just look good. On top of this beautiful linen shirt We also have the Stay Cool 2.0, perfect for those hot summer days. Keeps you cool. You can wear it at night. You can wear it during the day. You can wear it again to the beach or pool. So listen, if you want to look as cool and as hip as Torres, this is what I need you to do. Go to fiobach.com. That's FIOBOC, fiobach.com. And also on top of that, how about this? Listeners of the Air Torres Pod get 20% off your purchase when you use promo code Torres. Promo code Torres, fiobach.com. Appreciate their support. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. Good to be back. Final segment of the show. So good to be back. Thank you for your patience. By the way, a couple more recruiting questions. I think Chris references what I said. I think people think it's weak. I don't think it's the worst ever. Otis says Stokes be at Kentucky. We'll talk about that one in another episode, but we probably should have referenced that there. A lot of Kentucky buzz coming out of Peach Jam. We did talk about that on Monday's show if you want to go back and listen. All right, producer Matt says a mailbag. Next question, please. Aaron, this is good. Playtime is done on YouTube, 8490. I don't know if that's your birthday, August 4th. If it is, your birthday's coming up. Happy birthday. But he asks, Torres, he says, how the hell is J.J. Andrews still a 4-star high school recruit on some recruiting sites? All right, let's talk about this one really quick because I agree. I think it's insanity, and let's give some context here. So J.J. Andrews, as you can see on the screen, he is only one of 2 committed players in the class of 2026, top 25 or so prospects that's actually committed. So he committed to Arkansas probably in early to mid-May. We talked a little bit about him at the time. We talked a little bit about him on Monday's show. And at the time, like I'll even throw myself in there. Torres isn't afraid to take an L here and there. And when it happened, it kind of felt like, okay, his dad played football at Arkansas. He's from Arkansas. Yeah, like, okay, if Arkansas, offers, he's going to commit. It's not a big deal. Let's move on to the next thing. I don't think I realized how good he was at the time. And I certainly don't think most of the recruiting services realized how good he was at the time because he has absolutely blown up this summer. Now, I referenced it on Monday's show, is that transparently, when we should have known that J.J. Andrews was pretty good? It was when Cal offered and accepted the commitment. Because whatever you think about Coach Cal, the one thing that I have learned covering him, we talked about this the other day, he is not going to take a commitment from a kid if he doesn't think he's good enough to play at whatever level Coach Cal is at. And basically, Coach Cal, since he got to Memphis, or maybe not got to Memphis, but back into Memphis, all of Kentucky and Arkansas, he is putting together a team that is capable of winning the national championship every year. Even Memphis, when they were in Conference USA, they always had a team that was good enough. Maybe they won it, maybe they didn't. They obviously didn't while he was there. He always had a team good enough. And so the one thing about Cal, he doesn't care who your dad is, who your granddad is, where he played, if he's an alum, if you live in state. If he doesn't think you're good enough, he's not going to offer you. How many Kentucky kids did people want him to offer that he just wouldn't? How many at Memphis? It was a famous story. Unless he felt like you could be a day one contributor, he would not recruit you if you were a Memphis kid because he said, I don't want mom and dad and aunt and uncle in the stands screaming at me, telling me why am I not playing you? So that should have been first sign right there. But to the point of the listener, it is a great point. Like why are we still acting like after this summer that this isn't one of the top 5 prospects in America? And I think he's kind of the rare prospect of the opposite of what I just talked about a minute ago. He is the prospect that is both could be very good as a college basketball player and has NBA upside as well. As you can see on the screen, averaged 18 points, 6 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals per game at Peach Jam, was named the Peach Jam Tournament MVP. And first of all, just from a baseline skill perspective, frankly, as good as anybody in high school basketball. 20 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists in the final, 25 points, 7 boards, 7 of 14 shooting in the quarterfinals. And what's interesting to me, he has the size, 6'6", maybe 6'7". He's got the measurables. He's got the athleticism. And unlike all of these other guys, there is no real significant weakness in his game. He's a good 3-point shooter. We were talking about some of these guys a minute ago. Some of these guys in the 2026 class, they're too small. They're not athletic enough. They don't shoot the ball well, whatever. JJ Andrews kind of does a little bit of everything. And so I do think he's underrated. The commenter actually sent some more context here. Let me see if I can find what he said really quick. He said that right now ESPN does have him as a 5-star, but he is only a 4-star according to 24/7 Sports. As far as why, like I said, I think going into the summer, you can make the argument, well, he's an Arkansas kid. He committed to Arkansas. Is he that good? But a couple things. And by the way, I think there's other variables too. He's playing at the local high school. Now, I know Little Rock Christian is a very, prominent school in the state of Arkansas. But if he was playing at one of the big prep schools, IMG or whatever, evaluators would be seeing him more. But again, I think the default was, well, he's an Arkansas kid committed to Arkansas. What does it really mean? Well, it means he's really freaking good. And I do think as time goes on, and I think by the time these recruiting websites update their evaluations, he, to me, strikes me as a guy that will be a big, big, big mover in the next update of these recruiting rankings. Because what does he not have if you're looking as an evaluator? He's productive. He's got the stats. He's got the measurables. I think what's also interesting, you talk to these evaluators, it's not always just ranking guys how they are right now, but in a lot of cases, how they project in the long term with the NBA and with the future. Well, you mean to tell me that kid 6'6", can jump out of the gym, can shoot the ball, doesn't project as a very good NBA draft prospect? Yeah, he does. And it's funny because I think, again, when he committed, my hunch, my reaction, my thought was that ultimately he was a 2-and-done, probably an NBA player, but it was going to take time. I think it completely changes the trajectory of that 2026-2027 Arkansas team, because now, no matter who's back off this year's team, I think you have a bona fide NBA player in the 2026-2027 roster. Worth noting, by the way, I think it's a fun conversation. Who's going to be like that first super high draft pick off of John Calipari's Arkansas Razorbacks? I think Carter Knox could be this year. I think Darius Acuff could be this year. But I think JJ Andrews is a for sure like top 10 pick whenever he goes. But I think more importantly, into the question, I think he's one of the 10 best players in this class. I think, frankly, he's one of the 5 best players. I think he'll be somewhere in the 5 to 10 range the next time these recruiting rankings get updated. And I think he should be. I think he deserves it. By the way, as always, make sure you're following our Torres on Arkansas Twitter page for all your late-breaking Arkansas news. Producer Matt, before we get to the final question, do we have any from the chat that are worth getting to? We can pop those up really quickly. By the way, you can always send questions, Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. You can also send questions. We'll do a post on the YouTube page. Drop your questions on there as well. AT, thoughts on Donald Trump just making an executive order blocking collectives pay for play business model. All right, so this broke right before I came on air. I haven't really had a ton of time to look at it. I guess I would just say I'm a little dubious. First of all, the president tried to put together that committee with Nick Saban and Cody Campbell, the prominent Texas Tech booster, a few months ago. That fizzled out really quickly. And I think more importantly, listen, I don't understand all the government intricacies of it, but I do understand the real life intricacies of it. And here's the truth. It's hard to limit the money that someone can get off their name, image, likeness. We don't do this in any other walk of life. And it's the most cliche conversation. But if there's a piano player that sells out concert halls at 17 years old, they can still be a college student at Stanford or Auburn or Yale or Kentucky or Florida or UConn and still make a living off of their skills and their likeness. And so this is not a salary from the school. This is name, image, likeness. And until we differentiate the difference between salaried position, employee, and NIL, those are two completely different things. I keep using the example. There's an NBA salary cap. LeBron James can only make a certain amount of money. Steph Curry, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren can only make a certain amount of money from their respective teams. But LeBron James can make $50 million a year from Nike, $20 million a year from Nike. Same with Steph from Under Armour, same with whoever. And so to me, where this all ends up, and I don't know how we get there, Student athletes are going to be employees, at least college football and men's college basketball. There's no other way to regulate this market or to keep it in check. That's the only way to do it. Now, I still think there's going to be NIL deals. It's not going to stop a Texas Tech booster from offering somebody $100,000 or $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million to endorse their product to come play at Texas Tech. But I just don't know what this is going to do. And I don't know how this is going to limit the market. And then I think the other thing, and I've seen a couple people comment on this, how do you then regulate it? But then also, what are the punishments? Lane Kiffin actually said this at SEC Media Days. He was talking about when we had the $20.5 million cap. He said, well, but what is the punishment going to be if you break the rules? Because, you go back to the NCAA rules, it's like you do an investigation, somebody would get punished 5 years down the road. It had no actual impact. So there's a lot of questions. I'm dubious. I don't think you can stop anyone, even if they're a 19, 20-year-old college athlete, from making money off their name, image, likeness. I think we have to eventually get to athletes being employees. And until then, I don't think that much is actually going to change. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe things have happened while we're recording here. I just don't see it. What else we got? Ocean Currents, BYU fan, says, are you surprised that the Cougars didn't sign another big man this offseason? Xavier Staten is their only true 5, and he's a developmental center. First of all, I think I've mentioned this on the pod. Producer Matt and I, when we were in Provo, met Xavier Staten. 1, nicest human being in the world. Great kid. 2, he is big. I mean, he is a legit 7 foot tall. I do think it's interesting. BYU took another player on Wednesday. It was a guard, an overseas player. Haven't checked in at BYU. I assume he'll be like a red shirt developmental type guy. But if I had to, like probably at some point in the off season, before basketball season starts, we'll do like the one, what's the right word? Like the one thing, the trying to think of the terminology here, like the thing that could hold the team back, like the one, I can't think of the term. There's like a term that goes with it. But I do think BYU, the one thing they don't really have is a ton of rim protection and shot blocking. Now, they do have our guy, Cabakeda, friend of the, and he's not a friend yet of the Aaron Torres pod, but we are all fans here on the Aaron Torres pod of Cabakeda. But he's like 6'9", 6'10". He can block shots, but I wouldn't list him as a rim protector. And I do think that's the one thing. And I think we saw it a little bit against Bama. Now, Bama beat BYU in the NCAA tournament because Mark Sears was ridiculous. But also, Bama had Cliff Omoyori, they had Grant Nelson, they had Jaren Stevenson. They were just so big along that front line that BYU couldn't do much in the paint. Now, BYU, I think, is bigger across the board with AJ DeBonsa coming in, with Dominique Diamande coming in, with Xavier Staten coming in. Rob Wright is 6'3", 6'4". But I would say I am a little bit surprised. That's the one thing they don't have is really like a true 5-man outside of Xavier Staten. And he is a guy, to Ocean Current's point, that I don't know that he is a guy that's ready to step in and play like 26 minutes a night. Like if you're going up against a team with a true 7-footer, I don't know that he's ready to play 31 minutes and be a stopper. I think he's a 10, 12 minute a game guy against good teams, maybe a little bit more against bad teams. So I think it's a great point. Anything else from the chat? All right. Gary, who's a huge UConn fan, he's almost like the guy that keeps asking me about Boogie Fland. He's asking about Cole Kloer, okay? So Cole Kloer, fast-rising player in the class of 2026. I think coming out of the weekend, just got offers from like Kentucky and Duke. It's too early. Me and Gary, you're my guy, and Gary is a regular listener of the show. I think he only listens during summer recruiting time because, he's a recruiting obsessed nut like a lot of us are. But, Gary, I feel terrible because I tell you this every year, but sometimes fans want definitive answers. Is my team getting this guy? Is my team getting that guy? And sometimes we have clarification pretty early. Like Jason Crow, from the day that he announced his commitment, probably a day after, it became pretty clear it was going to be Missouri. Darius Acuff, I remember this time last year, we knew probably a month out it's going to be Arkansas. I don't even think there's a second place team. But Cole Kloer is a player that's interesting because he really is a little bit of a late riser. and a guy that has piqued interest from a lot of different teams. Arkansas was the other team. It was Arkansas and Kentucky. Both offered him after this past weekend at Peach Jam. And so this was a guy that felt like a UConn, Florida, and Alabama were the three X factors there. Now, I think that's a great trio to be recruited by. I think Nate Oates, Todd Golden, and Dan Hurley are as good as anybody in college basketball right now. But when Kentucky calls, it's different. When John Calipari calls, it's different. You know, if we believe the report from earlier this week, Kentucky's going to have plenty of money to play around with as far as NIL, maybe even more so than most everybody in college basketball. And so I think it is too early. By the way, he's from North Carolina. Now he's going to play high school ball at one of the prep schools, but you think North Carolina is going to be in the mix. He grew up an NC State fan. NC State isn't going to be a pushover in these recruitments now that Will Wade is there. So it just feels way too early to even speculate. I don't even know if he set up visits, but if he has and if he hasn't, again, Kentucky wants to get him on campus. Arkansas wants to get him on campus. He's from North Carolina. The Tar Heels and Wolfpack will be a factor. It's just saying anything would be total speculation. That's probably not fair to the kid. It's not fair to the schools recruiting him either. So I'm just going to say, how about this? It'll be one of those 7 schools I mentioned. It'll either be UNC, NC State, Arkansas, Kentucky, Florida, Alabama, or UConn. How you like that? I just cut down his final 7. Let's start making the graphic right now, Joe Tipton. All right. Anything else from the chat, Matt, or are we going to go to the last question? Okay. Let's get to the last question because it's a fun one. It's a little bit of a lighter one. So, Happy Gilmore 2 is coming out on Friday night on Netflix. So, mailbag question for my birthday from Ed in Los Angeles, regular listener to the show. Apparently, Ed's birthday was on Wednesday. So, happy birthday, Ed. He said, with Happy Gilmore dropping on Friday, if you could resurrect one movie or TV show, obviously in honor of Happy Gilmore being, the second one coming out, what would it be? Also, what would these characters be doing in this timeline? So a few thoughts here. One, by the way, happy birthday, Ed. Had no idea it was your birthday, but happy birthday. It's not my birthday, by the way. Producer Matt wished me a big old happy birthday when we got on air here. It's definitely not my birthday. It was a few weeks ago, but yes, it's Ed's birthday. Happy birthday. So first off, as far as the resurrect one movie or TV show, I actually over time always thought the best movie to recreate would have been Blue Chips. Remember Blue Chips? Nick Nolte, he recruits all those players. He pays them under the table. He gets caught, all that. Neon Bedeau, Butch McRae, Ricky Rowe. Incredible movie. By the way, incredible in hindsight. Bobby Knight is the coach of Indiana. Bob Hurley's playing for Indiana. Unbelievable movie that I always thought would be really fun to create like 6, 7, 8 years ago with Bagman and this and that and whatever. Then we got NIL. So now it would be the most boring movie ever. It'd be like, oh, we want this 5-star. What do we do? I don't know. Just pay him $4 million, whatever. Who cares? It's like, it's funny in hindsight, rewatching that movie. It's like, we got to get Butch McRae's mom a job. Now it's like you try to give a recruit's mom a job. She'd be like, I ain't working. Just give my son that cash. So I would say that Blue Chips is probably out of the question at this point. I'll say this because I know Ed is a fan. We've talked about it off air. And it is also a show that I'm currently rewatching. I think if you're somebody that kind of was in your teens, 20s, early 30s, in the early 2000s, the show Entourage was unbelievable. And I think it'd be funny because so much has changed and not so much has really changed. And so I'm rewatching it. I know Ed likes it. And I think that would be a really fun show to remake. Obviously, for people who don't know Entourage, spoiler alert, first of all, it's an incredible rewatch. I think it actually holds up pretty well. It's, I think it debuted in 2004. I think we just hit the 21st anniversary. But it's basically following a movie star back at a time when movie star still meant something, named Vinny Chase, and it's his buddies from high school, and they're hanging out and they're doing stuff in LA. And I think what's interesting is it becomes more of, in my opinion, a show about family, a show about whatever, a show about community. All the characters kind of find their own pathway. But that would be an incredible show to remake because I'd just be curious how you would even do it given the state of the entertainment industry. Now, first of all, the real interesting thing, if you've watched Entourage, by the end of the show, the star of the show is his agent, Ari Gold. Ari Gold is kind of this loud, abrasive, let's call it what it is. He says some comments and whatever that I don't think they would fly in 2025, and they certainly wouldn't have flown in like 2018, 2019, 2020. So first of all, does Ari Gold, the most powerful agent in LA, who helped bring a football team to LA, which was, that's kind of a weird caveat. I guess there's 2 teams here now, whatever. I mean, does he get Me Too? I mean, is he out of a job? Is he back into a job now that it's 2025 and we can make jokes again and Shane Gillis is hosting the ESPYs? I don't know. By the way, Jeremy Piven, who played the part, actually did sort of get kind of canceled for a second there. Now he's sort of on his way back up. But that's the most important question is like, does Ari get canceled? Does he get revived? Does he survive it somehow? Whatever. Then I think it'd be interesting. Like, what kind of people is he representing? I mean, I think the concept of a movie star doesn't really exist anymore. And I think in the entertainment business, to me, I was thinking about this. I was like, feels like the most influential people in the entertainment business are like the podcast comedian kind of guys. Joe Rogan is the extreme example, but like, does Ari represent Theo Vaughn? Does Ari represent Andrew Scholes? Like somebody like that. I don't know. That would be probably who he represents. Maybe a Logan Paul. He's helped setting up fights for Jake Paul with has-been boxers. I don't know. But those are the kind of people that he would be representing to me. And then everybody else would just be a total crapshoot. Vinny to me, I feel like hypothetically would be like the Leo DiCaprio does like one movie every 3 years. I'd hope he'd be settled down by now because one, the club scene in LA ain't what it used to be. I can tell you there ain't that much going on Saturday nights. But also, I also, guy in his late 40s, early 50s chasing girls, I don't think is as cool as it is when you're in your late 20s, early 30s. Turtle, probably still doing turtle things, although he made all his money off tequila. By the way, a lot of spoilers for this show if you have not seen it yet. And Drama, I still think is definitely in LA. He's just trying to get on an episode of, Ozarks or whatever the show is right now. E is probably being corny and lame as always. So that's what I would remake Entourage because I just think it's funny. And I think Ari Gold's a character that withstands the test of time. I think he would be great on any era and any show, although I do think you'd have to temper down some of his behavior. All right. We just gave you an hour 15 content on here on a Thursday. Man, oh man, oh man. We covered a lot of ground. Heisman, Entourage. What else did we talk about? Recruiting. We crapped out there for half a second. So I'll tell you what, this is what I think the deal is. I think what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. If you're not subscribed to the Aaron Torres pod, I mean, come on. What other show is covering this much ground, especially, by the way, we talked Hulk Hogan, rest in peace. We talked Donald Trump. We talked a lot on today's show. If you're not subscribed, this is what I need you to do. Make sure to do so. YouTube, we're closing in on 60,000 subscribers. We're at about 57.8 and change right now. Can we get to 60 before the start of the season? I think we can. By the way, as mentioned, we have a college football betting YouTube channel. Do me a quick favor. We're doing all of our previews over there. If you enjoy the Torres pod, go ahead, subscribe over there. We really would appreciate your support. We're trying to build up that channel as well. We're at a little over 870 subscribers. Pinned top of this, just click that link, subscribe. Really would appreciate your support. Send your questions so we get more questions for next episode. You can just go ahead and do that. Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. Also on YouTube, we will have a little bit of a tab where you can drop your questions as well. All for today's show, all for this week. I think we'll probably go ahead and get out of here. But thank you for your support. Another great week of shows. And we'll be back probably Sunday night with another episode of the Aaron Torres pod. Appreciate that. Shout out to Tor and Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick, you F-head. Unblock me, bro. Thank you to everybody who submitted questions. We appreciate your support as well. We will be back Sunday night, maybe Monday. New episode.